We all have that one friend that just doesn't know when it's time to leave. They've been sitting on your couch for hours. You're tired, it's late, and you want your space back. But you don't want to come off as rude or make it awkward, so you sit there, silently hoping they'll get the hint. Here's how to make them leave immediately, without ever asking them to, and without them even realizing they were pushed. This is day 1 of practical psychology. Just say, should we put on some water for a coffee, or... That's it. This works firstly because your brain craves closure. When a sentence ends on or, your subconscious fills in the blank, or not. Saying yes while thinking no feels unnatural, so the logical conclusion is to also say no. Secondly, coffee means commitment. If we're making coffee, we're sitting down again, restarting the hangout and extending the whole thing. So the only logical conclusion is no coffee, so the meeting is over, so it's time to go. They leave, and they think it was their decision. No awkwardness and no tension. You can use this in any situation where you don't want to do something, but don't want to say it directly. Should we still go to that party, or should I help you with the dishes, or... The trick is to say it like it doesn't matter to you. No pressure, just a casual option. If you overdo it, they'll just ask, or what? And then the whole effect is gone. People never tell you what they really think of you. They'll lie straight to your face, not because they're bad people, but because they want to avoid drama and don't want you to feel bad. You think you're getting honesty when you ask for feedback, but you're actually just getting a filtered version of what they think you can handle. But if you want to know what someone really thinks of you, use this. This is day 2 of practical psychology. It's called the third person technique. Instead of asking, what do you think of me? You ask, what do you think others think of me? That slight shift creates distance. It takes the spotlight off them. Now they're not judging you, they're just observing. Psychologically, this removes any pressure and guilt. It lets them feel safe and avoids any confrontation. They don't feel like they're insulting you, just reporting what they think others might say. They can hide behind the third person. But here's the trick, people always project. So when they tell you what others think, they're actually telling you what they think, but without realizing it. You get their raw opinion without triggering defense mechanisms. It works in work settings, friendships, even dating, but only if you stay cool. Don't react, don't argue, just listen, because the moment you make it unsafe, they'll never be honest again. There's a psychology-backed way to instantly increase how much money people are willing to give to you, and it doesn't just work for money, it works for help, for attention, even for love. One tiny gesture, and people will feel obligated to give. This is day 3 of practical psychology. A 2002 study, waiters gave diners mints with the bill. 1 mint led to 3% more tips, 2 mints, 14%. But when the waiter gave 2 mints and added, these are just for you, tips jumped by 23%. The first increases were just the candy and reciprocity, but the biggest increase comes from personalization. People want to feel like they're not just one of many. We crave distinction. When something feels personal, it confirms a belief we're already addicted to, that we're unique. That's what unlocked the urge to give back more. Not the candy, but the subtle confirmation of importance. If you're a waiter, use exactly that. Give something small, then make it feel chosen. If you're in sales, say, when I saw this, I immediately thought of you. In friendships or relationships, don't just give a gift. Say, I picked this because you love it. That one sentence flips the entire meaning. It turns a gesture into a connection. And that's what people remember, that's what they return, and that's how your business and your relationships achieve the next level. Now you can finally get laid, because I will tell you how to make yourself significantly more attractive without changing your body, your face, or even the way you talk, just by changing your shirt. It sounds shallow, but the effect is scientifically proven. This is day 4 of practical psychology. It's based on the red dress effect, demonstrated in a 2008 study by Elliott and Niesta. In the study, men rated photos of the same woman in different colored shirts. When she wore red, she was rated as significantly more sexually attractive, without any change in pose, facial expression, or background. The same thing happens in reverse. Women rated men in red as more attractive, confident, and powerful. Other studies have found red can increase perceived attractiveness by up to 25%, simply because of how the brain associates red with status, passion, and dominance. Use this. On dates and on your profile picture, wear red. In job interviews or sales meetings, a red tie, red dress, or even a red accessory can give you an edge. On social media, red pops harder, grabs more attention. It's one of the easiest methods to get a slight edge that sometimes changes everything. So, people are way easier to manipulate than you think. You don't need authority, you don't need power. All it takes is one word and suddenly, they agree to almost anything you ask. That word is, because. This is day 5 of practical psychology. In a 1978 study, researchers tested how likely people were to let someone cut in line at a copy machine. The results were shocking. When the person simply asked, "Can I cut in line?" about 60% agreed. When they added a reason, "Can I cut in because I'm in a hurry?" 94% said yes. But here's where it gets interesting. Even when the reason was completely meaningless, like, "Can I cut in because I need to make copies?" 93% still agreed. Why? Because the word "because" triggers compliance automatically. Our brains are wired to hear a reason and skip the evaluation. The logic doesn't even matter, we just obey. So always give a reason when asking for something, even if it's basic or obvious. Can you help me with this? Because I'm stuck. Let's sit here, because it's more quiet. That one word makes people more likely to agree without resistance. Add a because, and you get compliance. Because you don't need to guess whether someone likes you. Their body already told you. You just didn't listen. Because no matter what they say, these 3 easy subconscious cues always reveal the truth. This is day 6 of practical psychology. First, their feet. If their feet point toward you, even in a group, you're the one they're most engaged with. If their feet never point at you, not even when you're face to face, they can't stand you. The feet are hard to consciously control. They orient toward interest or away from what we want to leave. Second, barriers. When someone removes objects between you, like a glass, a phone, or a menu, they're subconsciously trying to connect. It's a sign of openness. But if they create barriers, placing their bag between you, crossing their arms with a cup in hand, or subtly shifting objects to block the view, it's a subtle rejection. We make it easy to access us for things and people we like, and hard for things and people we don't like. Third, the eyes. If their pupils dilate when they look at you, they like you. If they shrink, they're uncomfortable, uninterested, or bored. Pupil size is regulated by the autonomic nervous system. You can't fake it. Attraction literally makes the eyes open wider, because we want to see more of what we like, while disinterest does the opposite. We want to see less of what we hate. So now, you ever tried to change someone's mind in the middle of an argument and failed? Of course you did, because you tried it with logic and made perfect points when all you needed to do was to change the room. This is day 7 of practical psychology. The brain ties emotion to physical space. Anger, stubbornness, tension, they get anchored to the room. If you're arguing in the living room, that room becomes the battleground. Stay there, and both of you are locked in a pattern. But shift the environment, go for a walk, or talk in the kitchen, and something subtle happens. The emotional pattern gets disrupted. Suddenly, there's room for a new perspective. In criminal law, the same principle is used to distinguish between impulsive and premeditated crimes. If a person has to pass through multiple doors or cross different rooms before committing the act, the law assumes they had time to cool down, to snap out of emotional autopilot. The same principle is used to get your counterpart and yourself out of it. You stop the tunnel vision and create room for a new perspective. And if you want to bring it to the next level, switch to the room where you're the expert in. If you are a chef, and the other person always asks you what to do in the kitchen, go to the kitchen. Because the brain is already primed to listen and obey you in this room. So try it out. If you can make people believe a lie about yourself by telling the truth. One tiny detail can create an entire story in their mind. A story that feels real because they filled in the rest themselves. This is day 9 of practical psychology. When your brain gets only a fragment of information, it instinctively fills in the missing parts to make a complete picture. It's called closure bias. Think about buying a pizza from a supermarket. You only see one small slice through the packaging that looks perfectly crispy and loaded with toppings. You assume the whole pizza is just as good, even though you have no idea about the rest. You can use the same principle by carefully choosing which slice of yourself you show to influence what others imagine about the whole you. Let's say you want to come across as really important. Tell them you just came from a business meeting with someone from McKinsey, and that you helped a business with legal advice last week, even though the person from McKinsey was your cousin who just started his unpaid internship, and the legal advice was simply looking over a PDF from your friend's failing business. Their mind completes the image. You are rich, have a huge network, and are capable. To them, you seem like an important person, and this is the way they will treat you, even if they get to know the full truth later on. The first impression is what sticks, because someone makes a joke at your expense in front of everyone. It lands, people laugh at you, and you can't say a word, because if you call it out, you look sensitive or weak. If you push back, you look aggressive, like you're overreacting. You're trapped. So, here's what you need to do to kill any joke. This is day 8 of practical psychology. The trick is simple. Kill the joke by killing its timing and emotional punch. You look at them and say, wait, what did you say? I didn't catch that. They'll repeat it, but this time no one laughs. Why? Because humor dies on repetition. Then you follow up with, I still don't get it. Why? Now they have to explain it. The moment someone has to logically break down their joke, it loses all impact. People realize it wasn't that funny to begin with, maybe even just mean. Psychologically, jokes work through surprise and emotional resonance. But when you force the brain to switch from laughing to analyzing, it collapses. Now the attention shifts. The joke teller feels awkward, the crowd feels secondhand embarrassment. You didn't yell, you didn't whine, but you flip the entire power dynamic. That person, they will feel uncomfortable enough to never try again, while you look like the joke didn't even have an impact on you. And the best part, you can use it every time. No one ever helps you when you ask for something, no matter how nice you are, because you make saying no not only possible, but the easiest option. Ask wrong and people ignore you. Say it right, and they'll do it without thinking. This is day 10 of practical psychology. This is a textbook framing mistake. When you say, nobody really does this, you're not motivating anyone. You're giving them permission to ignore it. Researchers tested donation signs. One said, "Unfortunately, very few people donate." The other, "Most people are donating." The result? Framing it positively triggered far more donations. Because humans don't respond to rules, we respond to what others are doing. If you make it sound like no one helps, no one will. You're not just sharing the problem, you're spreading it. And even worse, you're giving people an easy, socially acceptable excuse to not lift a finger. If you want your friends to help you move, don't say, "I know no one likes doing this." Say, "Almost everyone already said yes. I just need you." Want someone to show up on time? Say, "Most people are usually a few minutes early." Need something returned? Say, "People usually give it back the next day." That's how framing works, and it decides whether people say yes or ignore you completely. And you always do it wrong, that's why. Your partner will leave you, no matter if you give them everything, attention, effort, and help, even though you invest so much time into them, if one simple thing is missing. And the reason for this lies in this crooked IKEA shelf. This is day 11 of practical psychology. It's called the IKEA effect. In a study, people built simple IKEA furniture and then had to assign it value. Even when the shelves were crooked or wobbly, they rated their own creation significantly higher than perfect, pre-built ones. Because when we invest effort into something, we convince ourselves it matters more. And the same happens in relationships. If someone has to put in effort, even just a little, they'll unconsciously decide you're worth more. But when you do, plan and give everything, you don't even give them the chance to invest into you. So let them do things for you. Let them plan where you're meeting. Let them take a water bottle with them. Ask them to close the window. Small stuff, harmless on the surface. But now they're invested. Now they feel responsible. The IKEA effect kicks in, and they will value, respect, and even like you more just because they put effort into you. And people don't throw away what they put effort into. So use it if you want to avoid that. You could share the most life-changing idea in the world and people would forget it in seconds. But tell a story about your ex, your childhood, or the moment everything fell apart in your life, and they'll remember every word. That's why you should never rely on facts or truths if you want to make people believe or remember something, but always on emotions. This is day 12 of practical psychology. Our brains are wired to store emotions, not information. That's why you don't remember your teacher's lessons, but you remember the embarrassing thing you said in class 10 years ago. One triggers a feeling, the other doesn't. There's a reason why people can tell you every scene from a movie they love, but not a single bullet point from the last presentation they saw. Stories create context, and context gives meaning. Try this. Tell someone your favorite color is blue, they'll forget it in 5 seconds. Now say, "It's blue because when I was a kid, my mom used to wear this old blue sweater when she hugged me. Every time I see that color, I feel safe." Suddenly, it's not about color anymore, it's an emotion, and they'll never forget it. If you want someone to remember what you say, don't give them a fact. Wrap it in a story. It doesn't matter if it's a belief, a lesson, or a product. If it's not a story, it's gone the second you stop talking, because manipulate your boss into promoting you. Imagine pouring countless hours into your work, showing up early, staying late, outperforming everyone. You're qualified, you've earned it, but when promotion time comes, your boss picks the least capable person in the room. That's not bad luck, it's pure psychology. This is day 13 of practical psychology. Ask your boss to look over your slides. Next week, get their input on how you handled a client call. Then ask for quick feedback on your strategy. These aren't just favors, they're investments. Every time they help you, they feel a little more responsible for you. We like people more when we do something for them. It tricks the brain. They don't think you ask for help. They think they helped you because they believe in you, and the more they invest, the more they'll want you to win, because your success reflects back on them. And even more important, do the shit jobs. The jobs no one wants to do. Be the one who takes notes, sends the summary, stays a little later to finish the job, because when it's time to pick someone for more responsibility, people choose the one they've seen show up all the time, when no one else did. That's the availability heuristic. When they ask themselves, who can I trust to handle more? Your name is the first that comes to mind, because now you know how to. The worst thing you can do is call someone a terrible driver. When you attack the person, not the action, they won't listen, they'll hate you deep down, and worse, they'll start to believe they themselves are the problem, not just their actions, and so they will never drive good again. This isn't about driving. This is day 14 of practical psychology. When you attack someone's identity, you don't just hurt their feelings, you shape their self-image. A child told you're lazy starts to see laziness as part of who they are. An employee told you're incompetent begins to think they'll fail no matter what they do. But there's another way. Criticize the action, not the person. Say, you didn't do your homework, not, you're stupid. Say, you missed the deadline, not, you're unreliable. When you separate the mistake from the person, you give them a way to fix the mistake without destroying their confidence. Children raised with this approach grow faster, perform better, and build a self-image they actually love. When you give a compliment, tie it directly to identity. Don't just say, thanks for helping. Say, you're such a reliable person. Don't just say, good idea. Say, you're incredibly creative. When people believe a positive trait is part of who they are, they'll go out of their way to keep proving it, again and again. You don't need a real reason to hate someone, you just need the smallest excuse. One tiny sign they're different, and instantly, they're no longer a person to you, they're the other side. And once that switch flips in your head, every move they make is wrong, every word they say is evil, and everything they do feels like proof they're the devil. Even if you've never spoken to them once in your life. This is day 15 of Practical Psychology. Psychologists split a group of boys into two teams, the Rattlers and the Eagles. At first, each group stayed in separate areas doing their own activities and building their own identity, team names, flags, even rituals. Then, the psychologists put them in direct competition. Baseball games, tug-of-war, contests with prizes for the winners. Within days, loyalty to their own group and hostility toward the other side exploded. They refused to eat together, they shouted insults, they tore down the other team's flag, and even destroyed their cabin. This is called minimal group theory, and you can use it in two ways. First, avoid unnecessary division between people you want to cooperate with. And second, if you want loyalty or influence, build a strong in-group with shared symbols or rituals. Once people feel they belong, they will defend you, overlook your faults, and fight your opponents with you. There's nothing more frustrating than living with someone who never takes out the trash. You could nag them forever and they still wouldn't do it. Or you could plant a thought in their head that makes them want to do it every single time without you asking once. This is day 16 of Practical Psychology. There's something oddly powerful about the way people protect their self-image, and if you know how to shape that image, you can change everything they do. That's why you start with casually saying, "You know what I really like about you? You're responsible. You do the things that need to be done without ever needing to be told." This way you give them a positive identity and strengthen their self-image as being responsible, and we naturally live up to an identity that makes us feel validated. But what's even more powerful is not wanting to have a bad image. That's why you continue with, "Not like my old roommate. He was so selfish and always let other people do everything for him, not even taking out the trash when it was his duty." Now you've linked not taking out the trash to being selfish and irresponsible, while they've already accepted the opposite identity because it felt so good to hear. This creates cognitive dissonance. Acting against that identity feels wrong. To fix the discomfort, they'll start behaving in line with the identity you gave them, meaning taking out the trash without you ever having to ask. That's the power of negative identity framing. Everything you do is guided by ego. The car you drive, the pictures you post, the words you choose, they all scream, "Look at me." And it's not just you. Everyone else is trapped in the same loop, which means there's a single shortcut to get anyone to do what you want. This is day 17 of Practical Psychology. Here's what most people do wrong. They attack. "You just play video games all day. You never have time for me. You're always so lazy." You point out the problem, you criticize, you pressure, and guess what? Nothing changes. The person shuts down or fights back. They feel cornered and annoyed, not motivated. You attack the ego when in reality you should use it. Make them feel exceptional while nudging them toward the action you want. Instead of criticism, highlight their strengths. "You're so clever and talented. If you applied that skill to this project, you'd blow everyone else out of the way." Now their ego is engaged. They want to prove it, to live up to the image you painted. They'll take action willingly, even enthusiastically, because they now feel flattered, admired, instead of annoyed, and only this way they will truly change. Point out what makes them unique, link it to the behavior you want, and they'll carry it out. And the best part? Everyone is winning. You get what you want, they feel valued and amazing while doing it, and you avoid an argument. The only thing you need to do is to jump over your own shadow, and if you can't do that, then you know you should work, train, or create something. Your current self is capable, disciplined, and ready. But tomorrow, when you actually have to do it, your future self is weak, distracted, and lazy. So you procrastinate. You fail. Every single time. That's why you have to give your future self no choice but to do what needs to be done, and Ulysses' rule shows you how. This is day 18 of Practical Psychology. Ulysses' rule is about removing temptation before it even appears. You set up conditions today that force yourself to act tomorrow. Because if you know you will get distracted, you can eliminate the possibility of failure in advance. The story behind it. Ulysses wanted to hear the siren song, but knew he would be powerless to resist. So, he had his men tie him to the mast. Once bound, his future self couldn't jump overboard, no matter how strong the temptation. The choice was made in advance. You can do the same. Lock your phone in a timed safe until your work session is over. Don't buy snacks so you can't binge later. Schedule workouts in a class you've already paid for. Use apps that block social media automatically. Prepay or commit publicly to deadlines. Anything that forces your future self to comply. Pre-commitment turns discipline into a system you can't fail. Why do you obey teachers, doctors, even strangers in uniforms, without ever checking if they're actually who they pretend to be? Because if someone looks like authority, your brain assumes they are. A combination of authority bias and the representativeness heuristic. And if you know how to trigger them, you can make people believe anything you say. This is day 19 of Practical Psychology. Authority bias means you're wired to follow whoever appears to be in charge. In small tribes, elders and leaders had the most knowledge, so obeying them increased your chances of survival. This instinct is so strong that ordinary people even delivered what they thought were lethal electric shocks to strangers simply because a man in a lab coat told them to. And they listened because the uniform, the tone, the setting all screamed expert. That's the representativeness heuristic. We judge by surface cues. If someone looks like a doctor and talks like a doctor, we assume they are a doctor, because the brain saves energy by trusting patterns instead of analyzing every case. To exploit it, copy the signals of authority, speak with full conviction, never as if you're offering an opinion, but as if you're stating facts, and people will start doubting themselves before doubting you. Use technical terms and insider language to trigger expertise. Clothing is one of the strongest signals. A reflective vest gets you into construction zones or backstage. A suit commands instant respect in business. Titles work the same way. Call yourself a consultant, advisor, or specialist, and people treat you like one. The secret isn't being authority, it's looking like authority. Because people don't test an illusion that makes sense, they obey it. If a task that should take an hour suddenly eats up the whole day, it's not because the task is harder than expected. It's because your brain sabotages you. It expands the task to fill the time you gave it. That's Parkinson's law. And once you know how to exploit it, you can get things done in hours that would normally take weeks. This is day 20 of Practical Psychology. Parkinson's law is simple. Work expands to fill the time available for its completion. Give yourself a week to finish something, and your brain will stretch it into a week. Give yourself one afternoon, and magically, it only takes an afternoon. The problem is, your brain is lazy and loves comfort. It will use every spare minute as an excuse to procrastinate, overthink, and slow down. That's why students write essays the night before, and why you suddenly become hyper-productive right before a deadline. It's not ability, it's pressure. Your brain only activates fully when the clock is running out. So you trick it. Set artificial deadlines that are much tighter than reality. If you have a week, force yourself to finish in 2 days. Use timers. Give yourself 25 minutes to finish what you'd normally drag out for hours. Announce deadlines publicly, so there's pressure to deliver. Shrink the time window, and your brain kicks into focus mode immediately. Parkinson's law sabotages you by stretching tasks endlessly. You beat it by choking the time, creating urgency, and forcing your brain to work at its real capacity. If you want more psychological cheat codes, check the link in my bio. Why do you always make the worst decisions at night? All day you eat clean, work hard, stay disciplined, then at 11 p.m. you're binging snacks, wasting hours on your phone, or texting people you swore you'd avoid. Because by evening your brain is drained, your willpower is empty, and that's exactly when you make the dumbest decisions. This is day 21 of Practical Psychology. Your willpower works like a muscle. Every choice, every bit of self-control, every no you say during the day drains it. Psychologists call this ego depletion. By the evening that muscle is exhausted. That's why you give in to cravings, scroll for hours, or agree to things you regret. You're not suddenly a different person, you're just out of mental energy. Studies show people resist temptations better in the morning, but by night they collapse into impulsive behavior. So if you want to stop sabotaging yourself, stop making big decisions at night. Sign contracts, plan your future, or solve conflicts before 6 p.m. And if you can't, sleep on it, literally. A rested brain resets its willpower. And use your energy strategically. Automate small choices during the day so you save willpower for what really matters. If you respect your brain's limits, you stop letting late-night impulses control your life. And if you want more psychological cheat codes, check the link in my bio. This one simple memory trick lets you remember anything 10 times faster, and once you try it, you'll never forget again. This is day 22 of Practical Psychology. Your brain is bad at abstract information, but brilliant at remembering places. You forget names and lists, but you can still walk through your old school in your head, step by step. That's what the loci technique, or the so-called mind palace, exploits. You take a familiar place, your room, your apartment, or the walk to work, and you place the things you want to remember inside it. That's how Greek politicians could deliver hour-long speeches with no notes, and why memory champions can memorize entire decks of cards in under a minute. They're not smarter than you, they just build a memory palace inside their brain. Here's how to use it right now. Pick a place you know by heart, let's say your living room. Now take items you want to remember: an apple, keys, and shoes. Now, make each one absurdly visual. See a giant apple smashed on your couch, imagine keys melting on a candle, picture your shoe vibrating like a phone. The crazier the better. Now mentally walk through the room. You'll remember every single one in perfect order. That's how you can store information instantly. Use it for exams, presentations, even to memorize names at a party. The hack is simple. Don't try to remember words, turn them into places and images. Your brain can't forget them because it thinks they're real. And if you want more psychological cheat codes, check the link in my bio. The worst advice you can ever give someone is to trust their gut. It sounds wise and it feels empowering, but it's complete bullshit. Because your gut is stuffed with cognitive distortions that trick you into the dumbest decisions of your life. This is day 23 of Practical Psychology. Take the availability heuristic. You see dozens of posts about people making millions with some meme coin. Your gut wants you to invest, because the more often you see it, the safer and smarter it feels, even if it's clearly a scam. Or the halo effect. You meet someone confident and attractive, and your gut trusts them, but you're not reading their character. You're blinded by one trait, spilling over into everything else. That's how you end up with someone you hate, or hiring the wrong person. Or confirmation bias. Deep down you want something to be true, so your gut tells you it is. You ignore all red flags in a stock, just because you like it. What you call gut feeling is often just your brain recycling the most convenient bias, and it ruins lives. So what's the alternative? Stop trusting feelings, trust data. Don't decide based on what seems obvious, decide based on what you can prove. Run the numbers, check the evidence, write pros and cons and get cold external opinions. Build rules and systems in advance so emotion can't hijack you in the moment. Forget the myth of intuition. Your gut is a liar. Only facts will save you. And if you want more psychological cheat codes, check the link in my bio. Tinder hasn't given you more love, it's made you incapable of it. You don't fall for people anymore, you swipe through them like cheap products, and train your brain to believe there's always something better one swipe away. That's why no one feels good enough for you anymore, even though they were actually perfect for you. This is day 24 of Practical Psychology. It's the Tinder effect. The mix of choice overload and swipe conditioning. Your brain wasn't built for endless options. When you have too much choice, you don't appreciate any of it. Tinder floods you with profiles until every person feels replaceable, and the left or right swipe trains you to make split-second yes or no calls based only on looks. That habit rewires your brain. You don't evaluate people anymore, you discard them. The result? Commitment feels like losing out, ghosting becomes normal, and even good connections collapse, because your brain is convinced someone better is just one swipe away. So what do you do if you actually want connection? Starve your brain of endless choice. Delete the apps. When you match, stop juggling 10 convos at once. Focus on one person, because focus is what creates value. Meet offline, where your brain can't escape with a swipe, and if you insist on staying in the game, learn the truth. The first photo is life or death. Tinder has conditioned everyone to judge in under a second, so play that rule to win. But remember, the more you swipe, the less capable you are of love. And if you want more psychological cheat codes, check the link in my bio. Everything you feel is a lie. You don't feel tired because your body is exhausted, you feel tired because you said so. The same way you feel pain before an injury is even bad, or anxiety before anything even happens. Your brain isn't showing you reality, it's predicting it, and then forcing your body to obey. This is day 25 of Practical Psychology. It's called predictive processing. Your brain is a prediction machine. It doesn't just read the world, it builds it. When you say you're tired, your brain doesn't treat it as a description, it treats it as an instruction. It adjusts your posture, slows your energy, even lowers your focus, because you told it to. That's why athletes who repeat, "I'm exhausted," collapse faster, and why people who say, "I'm fine," often actually hold out longer. The words you use are signals that shape the state you feel. So stop feeding yourself garbage. If you tell yourself you're tired, weak, broken, you will be. Not because it's true, but because you ordered it. So rewrite the commands. Don't say you're tired. Say you feel tired but still have energy. Don't say you're anxious. Say your body is alert and you can use it. Don't say you can't. Say you haven't yet. Your brain doesn't care what's real, it cares what's predicted. If you run weak predictions, you live a weak life. If you run strong ones, your body has no choice but to follow. And if you want more psychological cheat codes, check the link in my bio. The fastest way to make your partner leave you is to ask them what bothers them about you. You think it's honest and improves the relationship, but in reality it's giving them just one job: to find proof that you're not good enough. And once they start looking, they'll always find something. This is day 26 of Practical Psychology. That's how focus works. Where attention goes, reality grows. If you direct someone to search for flaws, their brain will convince them those flaws are real and important, even if they didn't matter before. The more time and energy they spend on the search, the more certain they become. That's why problem questions kill relationships. Psychologists call the opposite appreciative inquiry. Instead of asking for problems, you ask for strengths. A question like, "When did you feel most loved by me?" forces their brain to search for proof that you're good for them. Suddenly their own mind switches sides. It becomes your lawyer, building arguments for why the relationship works and why you're worth keeping. So stop digging your own grave. Never hand your partner the assignment to criticize you. Instead, force their brain to collect proof that you make them happy. The rule is simple: negative questions create negative answers. Positive questions create positive conviction. Where you point their focus, you control their belief. And if you want more psychological cheat codes, check the link in my bio. Your depression is not just a disease. You call it an illness because then it's not your fault. It's the easiest excuse to hand away responsibility for your meaningless, isolated, and overstimulated life, when in reality, depression is simply the most natural reaction to it. This is day 27 of Practical Psychology. Calling depression a disease is the perfect story: easy, profitable, and it keeps you obedient. Pills and therapy can be sold forever, giving you the illusion of fixing something while leaving the real cause untouched. And you believe it because it's painless. If it's a disease, you're innocent. No responsibility, no change. You can keep your shallow life and blame it on bad chemistry. But the truth is different. Depression is a signal that you're living against what you were built for. Humans evolved in tribes, outdoors, with sunlight, physical struggle, and shared purpose. Now, you sit alone, staring at screens, overstimulated and disconnected. Your brain doesn't break for no reason. It breaks because you trap it in conditions it was never designed to survive. So stop treating depression as an illness and start treating it as a signal. Rebuild the conditions your brain expects. Real connection, not shallow feeds. Sun and air, not walls and screens. Sweat and strain, not endless comfort. And above all, meaning. Goals that matter more than convenience. None of this is easy, but that's why it works. Easy fixes sell, while hard changes heal. By the time you realize you're dealing with a narcissist, it's usually too late. They've already drained your energy, your trust, or your money. That's why I will show you how to spot any narcissist in 60 seconds. This is day 28 of Practical Psychology. There are 3 red flags narcissists can't hide. First, every conversation is about them. Whatever you share, they twist it back to themselves. If you talk about your day, they top it with their story. If you share pain, they redirect it to their struggles. Because narcissists see every exchange as a stage, your words aren't something to connect with, they're cues to spotlight themselves. Second, They show no genuine curiosity. Healthy people ask questions because they care about understanding you. Narcissists don't. They don't ask follow-ups, they don't dig deeper. Because empathy requires stepping outside yourself, and narcissists can't tolerate not being the center. To them, listening is just waiting for their next line. Third, their charm is fake. At first they're often overly flattering, compliments, big smiles, surface-level warmth. It feels intoxicating, but it's bait. The second the spotlight moves off them, their mask slips. Irritation, boredom, even contempt leaks through. Look for the signs, and you will see through the mask immediately. Observe your environment, and cut out the people with the highest score on the narcissism spectrum before it's too late. And if you want more psychological cheat codes, check the link in my bio. If I told you I was going to kill 4 people and 1 monkey, you wouldn't ask why the people, you'd only ask why the monkey, because morals, emotions, or logic don't matter if something breaks the pattern. This is day 29 of practical psychology. It's called the von Restorff effect. Your brain processes information in layers, value, meaning, morality, but above almost everything sits contrast. When something breaks the pattern, it takes all the attention away from anything else. That's why in a room of 20 people introducing themselves, you won't remember the 20 who say, "Hi, I work in sales." You'll remember the one who says, "I'll be running this company in 10 years. The brain deletes sameness and highlights difference. And this effect is stronger than almost any other trick. Stronger than appeals to morality, stronger than emotions, and stronger than logic. So if you want to be unforgettable, here's the principle. Always create the monkey in the room. First, study the pattern. What's normal? What people expect? What blends in? Then break it. That's the lever for attention, for influence, and for money. Safe behavior gets ignored. Scandals skyrocket. Because they rip someone out of the pattern and burn them into memory. And if you've really fucked up with something, you can still use this. Throw out a bigger pattern break. Create the monkey that pulls every eye so people fixate on that and forget the rest. Don't waste time trying to be perfect or moral. If you want to stay in people's heads, you have to be the thing that breaks the pattern. And if you want more psychological cheat codes, check the link in my bio. The worst feeling is listening to someone lie to your face without realizing it. But every lie follows the same pattern, and with this one psychological trick, you can expose every lie instantly. This is day 30 of practical psychology. Telling the truth is easy. You just replay reality, moment for moment. It flows naturally in any order. But lying? That's hard. You have to invent details, memorize them, and keep the timeline straight. That floats the brain with cognitive load, and under enough of it, every brain collapses. Liars memorize a single straight story to reduce this load, but memorizing only works in one direction. If you need to rehearse 10 words, you can do it in a few minutes. But if I now ask you for a different order, your memory collapses. And that's exactly what we use. Change the order, and the lie falls apart. Let them tell their whole story. Don't interrupt, don't ask anything. The longer you stay quiet, the safer they'll feel. Then hit them off guard. Ask questions in a different order. Don't start at the beginning, start in the middle, and jump around unpredictably. If they're telling the truth, no problem. But if they're lying, 3 things will happen. They contradict themselves or say something that makes no sense, they need forever to recall, or they keep repeating they don't remember. If you catch one of those signals, or better, all of them, you just exposed a lie. And if you want more psychological cheat codes, check the link in my bio.